would like to know, Comrade Soweto, are we better off as a nation than we were 4 years ago?
I think we are worse off, going by all parameters. We are worse off because the government of the day has not in any way departed from the economic and political policies of the past administration. The policies remain capitalist policies, anti-poor policies that has further impoverished Nigerians, so that you find today that Nigeria is the poverty capital, of the continent, and that is not expected, to even improve in the coming period, going by recent data, economic data that IMF and Co have released, which shows that Nigeria is on the brink of another economic collapse. And why is the economy collapsing? It's simply because you have a parasitic ruling elite that are feeding fat on the commonwealth of the country, that are filling their bank vault with millions and millions of naira, while the rest of us, are trying to survive on a daily basis. The struggle over the minimum wage is a clear indication of how much this government does not care about the interests of ordinary people. Workers are fighting for just 65,000. Government is talking about 24,000.
You've listed about 2 issues. Now, I would like to know, what do your party see as the major issues eroding our common good in Nigeria?
The major issue, which is very fundamental, is for us the system. We have a system that cannot make anything work in this country. That is the system of capitalism, which ensures that only a minority of the population corners over 80% of the resources, while the rest of us go hungry. The byproduct of that system are those that politicians and so-called social experts frequently talk about when they say corruption, when they say inefficiency of governance, when they say bureaucracy, when they talk about all of these things. These are byproducts of a fundamental malaise that, if not treated, if not addressed, will only mean that the disease will not go away. It's like when a human being has HIV. Regardless of how much you treat malaria or you treat headache or you treat any other thing, the fundamental malaise must be treated. Without it, the problem remains. And the fact that 58 years after, we continue to talk about the same issues of poverty in the midst of plenty, not poverty that we know before, what is now generally and popularly referred to as multi-dimensional poverty. Poverty in all kinds of ways, including graduates of universities who some 20 years ago you expect will be climbing up the social ladder are now poor. Those who work in sectors that used to be seen as a very elitist sector, like those who work in our hospitals, like doctors, they are part of those who are multidimensionally poor today, because you have doctors who are actually working in private hospitals receiving 35,000 naira per month.
So what would your party do about these issues?
The Socialist Party of Nigeria, as its name implies, is a political party that first and foremost believes that the commonwealth of Nigeria, if properly utilized under a democratic management, is enough not just to take care of our present population, but 10 times our current population. Unlike the capitalist ruling elite, who say our population as a problem, we see the population of Nigeria, as immense as it is, as actually an asset, because it means that we don't have to look anywhere before we see the engineers who will develop our public infrastructures, the doctors who will treat our children. But this will not happen if the wealth of the country remains trapped in the hands of a few. So our program is first and foremost economically to re-engineer the economy of this country, and that is by taking away the wealth of the 1%. We want Nigeria's wealth, both economic, mineral, and all that, to be managed democratically by a committee formed by working people, representative of the poor, to ensure that those resources are actually used for the interest of ordinary people. We think that if the ruling elite continues to be in governance, there is no way they can bring the kind of policies that will ensure that this immense wealth goes to benefit the mass majority. Nigeria, if it's going to be able to overcome the level of what would you call it, of retrogression that we have experienced over the past 58 years, it will mean that over the next 10 years, Nigeria should be a workshop. I mean, in terms of public works program going on in every sector. Our roads have been built, more homes have been built, the water sector is being addressed, the electricity sector is put under the control of the working people, that is being nationalized, and money is being pumped we want a country which is more or less a workshop for the next 10 years. That is what would ensure that in that space of time, we can be able to leapfrog over all of those decades of retrogression that we have experienced and ensure that we have an economy that provides all the things that its teeming population requires to live a prosperous life.
How would you, as an individual or your party, make sure that what you are selling to us as improving our infrastructure is done or provided that it's moving?
The first thing I would say is that given the level of development of the world, we need to, if we are going to have a vision of a Nigeria that works for all, we also should have compare ourselves to the rest of the world in terms of what has been achieved in other places and where we are. I want to make a point, and the first point is that I think that any politician or political office holder that goes to inaugurate bridges, flyovers, roads, such elements should be regarded as Nincompoops, as elements who are celebrating retrogression. Because the reality is that the world is not at that stage anymore. The world is celebrating some architectural feats, engineering feats that are beyond the question of bridges and flyovers. And if 58 years after, for a country that has had the Third Mainland Bridge, that can point to many other very big engineering feats that has been accomplished in the period of the First and the Second Republic, if 58 years after, you now have elements who are inaugurating flyovers with fanfare, such elements are clearly not elements who think good for this country. That's the first thing. The second thing that I would say is that what are we going to do? We think that it is possible, but what we keep saying is that the wealth is enough. And the wealth has always been enough. But why is it that we don't seem to have the same level of infrastructural facilities that is required? In fact, in terms of housing, Nigeria is short of nothing less than maybe 10 million homes across the country. That's the level of deficit. If you look at statistics very well, it's bound to be even more than that. About 12-point-something million children, even 13.5 I think, children are out of school now. Not only because you don't want to go to school, but because there are not enough schools. So it means that maybe we need to build, maybe every year, 200,000 classrooms that can take 35 children or students per those classrooms. It will also mean that you need to employ equal number of teachers to be able to man all of these schools. There's a way it can be said that this is impossible given our resources. And that is why we in the SPN says that if we are going to be able to develop this country, we have to do away with the contract system. The contract system is actually one of the most corrupt, system of developed public infrastructure anywhere in the world. Nobody talks about it because that is the means through which millions of dollars are stolen without anybody having an understanding of how it's stolen. And that contract system means that road construction contract for construction of housing, hospitals and co. are given out to private construction companies, not because the government does not have capacity to do it by itself. Actually, the Ministry of Works, which equally has branches across the 30 states of the Federation, has staff, including engineers, carpenters, surveyors, and co., who are employed for this purpose. They equally have equipment. Instead, that many of these equipment have been allowed to decay over a long period of time. If they were the one who handled such projects, it would mean that such project will be handled more cheaply, which would mean that the same amount that is used to build 10 kilometers of road can actually be enough to build maybe 100 kilometers of road. So
we'd like to know, how will your party tackle corruption, which seems the biggest problem in Nigeria today?
Corruption is first and foremost a function of a system that permits self-enrichment by a number of people, a minority. Because, and I keep reverting back to capitalism because so much ignorance has been spewed out there in the last 3.5 years, mainly by the ruling APC, trying to delude people to create the impression that corruption is not a function of the system, but corruption is actually a misdemeanor of just a number of people and individuals. SPN completely opposes such ignorance. We think that corruption is structural. It's a direct byproduct of a system that allows promotes and sustains itself by it, and that is capitalism. We think that first and foremost, doing away with capitalism resolves 80% of the problem of corruption. Because by doing away with it, which will mean that, and what are the steps to do with capitalism? First and foremost, the commanding height of the economy, as I've said, should be taken over by the public, a committee, a democratic committee constituted by elected representatives of different layers of the population, the trade unions, students, professional groups, and of course government officials, and all of that. To have an oversight over all of these sectors and ensure that it is the people's will that determines what is done in different sectors.
In Nigeria, we have two major parties. How will SPN break into this barrier? How will you make people vote for your party and you?
Well, the only way we can do that is by seriously and steadfastly defending our programs and our ideas. Our programs and our ideas are alternatives ideas. If you look at the political situation in the country today, there appears to be a consensus, whether PDP or APC or ADC or any other party that are mainstream parties. All of them are saying the same thing. We can only grow Nigeria through implementation of anti-poor policies, neoliberal policies. Only the SPN is saying that there are alternative ways through which we can make Nigeria work. And that is by utilizing common resources for the common good, through all of the aforementioned steps that I've said here. If we want people to take us serious and realize that there are other parties other than APC, PDP, then it means that first and foremost, we need to loudly proclaim those programs. And that is why we are using this election to put forward candidates in different areas to fly the flag of the party in order to use the opportunity of the campaign to go into the field to actually challenge people that you don't have to keep voting for those who are going to shipwreck your future and that of your children for the next 4 years. Now an alternative exists. We contested in Osun State during the last gubernatorial elections. We are going to contest again the same Osun State for 1 or 2 positions because we are not afraid of small beginnings. We are not ashamed of very small sources. We are equally not ashamed of even defeat at the beginning and at the initial stage because we are very, very sure that our ideas and programs are those things that can take Nigeria forward.
During your election, your party primary, you said you will remain in your one-room apartment, and that created a lot of uproar. People are saying he can't do that, he won't do that. Don't you think these promises are too much?
That's not even a promise. Staying in a one-bedroom apartment, something which I willingly went to my landlord to procure when I never knew I would contest for an office. It's not even part of our campaign program. It's simply what our party, as a disciplined party, expects of all its members. The party believes that you cannot represent the people in a political office when you live above them. That's the whole essence of democratic representation is defeated, even right from there, when this Mr. Senator can even buy all members of the constituency, because that is the whole idea of a senator being able to share 1,000 naira to people. It shows that you have so much money that you can actually, give to all members of your constituency. Our party thinks that our members, especially those who aspire for a political office, must live by certain public standards. It doesn't mean that if you are not in a political office that you don't have opportunity of going to rent a duplex or going to build a mansion. If you have worked for the money, that is your problem. But if you are in public office, those standards must be met, and there are 2 standards. 1, you must not collect under the average wage of a civil servant while you are there. The rest should be donated back to the party. The party will then use it to support the struggles, of working people all across the country. I mean, there are many workers or student activists who need their lawyers to defend them and whatever. Imagine if I'm the House of Assembly. It means that those monies that the rest of my colleagues will use to go and carry girls and lodge in hotels can be useful to defend students all across schools in Ogun State who are fighting for one thing or the other, and the management decides to suspend them. It means that they can walk up to the constituency officers without even seeing the honorable, and lawyers will be there to represent them. Workers can equally do the same. It means that we can use those monies to equally, develop, to do some things in our constituency for the purpose of ensuring that people make progress in those constituencies. We have had in a period in this country, First, Second Republic, whereby you have had public office holders who went to governance, and they left governance and went back to their apartment. You have had Ajasin, for instance, in Ondo State. You have had Jakonde equally in Lagos State, who left governance without actually going into wealth. Unlike the governors that have ruled Lagos State since 1990, all of them went to governance not so rich, and they have left with so much money, with one of them even having an empire that spans the entire southwest, if not the entirety of the country. If you are looking for any evidence of corruption, look no further than those examples I've mentioned. So that for those who say it is not possible to do it, I will tell them that that's the more reason why you should give yours a vote. Let us get there and then demonstrate that socialists can actually do these things that we are saying.